Hello, friends. You are now listening to I Know Nothing. I'm Marcus,
I'm George.
and today on the podcast, we'll be talking about electric cars. The I Know Nothing podcast is a progressive story. Up until recently, George and I have done nothing positive for the environment. We do not feel associated with the climate advocates of our day, partially because they feel so far removed. However, that must not stop us. So we want to become more educated on the issues surrounding the climate and hopefully show the struggle and success of our journey to help others. So with that being said, why don't we mix it up a little bit, George? How have you found making this podcast? Has it changed anything with yourself?
Yeah, so I'm still loving the weekly knowledge gain. We cover a lot in these podcasts, and I don't always retain all of it, but I definitely find myself noticing that the topics we cover come up in everyday conversation. Even wind farms the other week, I had a discussion at work about them, not that I brought it up, they just came up organically via someone else, and so I was able to impart maybe a slightly more educated understanding to the topic, I guess, which is nice. Although I have to admit that my favourite part is us. Well, my favourite part is chatting to you once a week, sitting down and talking. But I do quite like having Google Doc debates. I've never done it with anyone else. I've never seen a Google Doc debate before. If anyone's wondering what it is, it's where you write. We come up with the facts sort of prior to the episode, and then we end up debating like which facts should go in and how we should pose different ideas, because it's so complex. We often disagree on the sources, and that's what it's all about, really. It'd be terrible if we always agreed on sources, because we'd just be feeding listeners the same sort of biased content, I suppose. Yeah. What about yourself?
Yeah, it's nice someone that you're friends with keeping you in check.
Yeah.
But I do hate being wrong. I loathe it.
Don't we all?
I loathe it. And so even when you come in with a logical point of view, I'm there like, yeah, fuck this guy. Even though in my heart of hearts, I know you're correct. I think that's a problem with our society exactly at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. You want to be right more than you want
to know the truth.
You want to win the conversation more than you want, the truth. Yeah, exactly.
But it's been positive. The amount of knowledge, like you said, some of it you retain, some of it you don't, but it's nice being able to talk about it amongst your peers, your colleagues, etc., just on a whim.
Absolutely.
And in terms of the podcast, for me, I'm feeling positive about it. I feel like we're getting better and more concise on the topics. Listening back to, let's say, the first episode, you can see that we've come, well, I hope we've come leaps and bounds with the conversation that we're having. It's not so much talking about this and that. It's a little bit more concise for you, the listeners, I guess. However, I do feel like with new listeners, I kind of just want to say to them, like, hey, don't judge us from episode 1 to almost 5. You know, listen to it, but remember that we're trying to improve ourselves. We're not experts on the topics that we talk about, but we're also not experts on, making videos, making this podcast, talking on the internet.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're not YouTubers or vloggers or whatever you want to call them. So it's a learning curve on that part too, which I actually really enjoy. I love learning all about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So I think we should update everyone on our challenge, George.
Sure. So last week, our challenge from episode 11 was to try out Olio, which we'd carried over from episode 10. I'm not really sure if this counts, but I did eat some food from Olio, but I didn't collect it. There's a lady...
I think that counts. That definitely counts.
Nice. That's maybe generous, but I'll take it. There's a lady near us that gives away all sorts almost nightly, so my housemates go there quite a bit. And yeah, I've got to be honest, I've never gone. Maybe I'll go one day, but they go and bring back the goods, and I just enjoy the wares.
Why hasn't she realised that she should probably be buying less food if she's always giving it away?
No, so she gets it from shops. So she picks it up from shops at the end of their day, and then hands it out to people. So one day she's giving away Selfridges stuff, other days she's giving away, I don't know, Planet Organic, things like that.
So she's actually proactively doing it.
Yeah, I think Olio set it up. I think it's organised by them. Like they've got sort of mini reps almost, where they organise both the person who goes to pick it up and also the company, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool. So
it's
I
not
guess
just like leftover bolognese.
If only. I do love a good homemade bolognese. So in terms of me with the challenge, I don't think I completed it at all. So my part of the challenge was actually to give food away. But if anything, I ate all the food that I need. I buy food daily, so it's not like anything goes to waste by expiring.
Yeah.
Their expiration date.
What do you eat most of the time, Marcus?
I'm very basic. I've still carried on that student lifestyle with pesto pasta, chicken, rice.
I'm the same.
Mixed veg.
And it's sad because I've always had one flatmate at least that cooks properly, and I feel like half the reason they do it is so they can judge you when you put your tortelloni in the pan.
100%.
I honestly think that must be 50% of the satisfaction of cooking for yourself in a shared house, just so you can be like, oh, you got a lot of tortelloni in the fridge there, George. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway, I'm just gonna chop my onions.
100%. It's totally a status thing. It's totally a status thing. And
or / I suppose a nice food thing, but nah. Irrelevant.
I would love to cook properly, and actually, I do rate myself as a chef. As a cook. No, as a cook. And I feel like my excuse. Here we go. Here's my excuse. I'm too much of a perfectionist to want to cook regularly.
Right.
A meal that is quite complex. And so I just choose not to.
Right. And why because you feel like if you made a complex meal, you wouldn't want to get it wrong.
Right. And so...
Is that it?
Kind of. But
so you'd rather do a simple meal? Sorry.
Exactly. So the complexity, because I would want to get it perfect, I feel like it would take too much time, and I'd stress about it actually more than actually enjoy the process.
Okay, yeah.
Getting timings right and stuff.
I'm just... it's totally just a lazy thing for me.
Oh, yeah, 100%. If I'm being honest, it's totally a lazy thing. I'm trying to make a good excuse.
Yeah, no, I've got no good excuse. I'm just lazy.
Yeah, no, I tried. That was me trying.
That's it.
That probably...
I think generally in life, I'd say I'm fairly well motivated, I'd say, in terms of getting stuff done and doing things. But cooking is just not on that list, I suppose, because it doesn't necessarily achieve anything in terms of... Obviously, it does achieve something, and it's nice to cook good food, etc. And I do sometimes do that. But for me, at the end of the meal, if you've had a nice meal or a basic meal that you still really like, then you're basically in the same position. Whereas if you don't sort out your bills, then your bills aren't paid.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with you.
I love that we're sat here trying to justify
That's why I'm laughing.
Being lazy. It's like, yeah, it's totally like
it's efficient,
just an efficiency thing. Yeah. I've just got more important things to do than cooking.
Like, I've become such a minimalist that even my meals have become basic.
Yeah. Anyway. So, what are we going to talk about this week, Marcus?
Wait. So before I forget, so like I said, I haven't really given anything to Olio because I don't waste anything. So that's kind of a positive in a sense. Like, you know, there's only so many actions that you can do as a person without changing the good things about you anyway, if that makes sense. I personally believe that me not wasting food is kind of a good thing. So why would I need to change a habit like that?
Yeah.
But one thing that I did find recently, a colleague of mine told me about another app called Too Good To Go. And that's where supermarkets will sell magic bags, which is effectively food that is about to expire or they just need to get rid of because they can't sell. And so maybe I'll do that in the future. Doing my daily shop from those.
There was, from experience, if you go into Lidl's, I think anywhere in the UK, but maybe, at least in London, definitely, you can, I can't remember, it's called Too Good To Waste, I think. And you pay, from what I remember, I think it's £1.50 for 5 kilograms of fruit and veg, which sometimes is just some potatoes and is still good value for money, but not amazing. But sometimes it's 5 kilograms of strawberries, raspberries, oranges, apples, like it. And that at that point,
are you going to name all the fruit
you were
and
looking
veg?
at some. No, like the expensive ones are the ones I'm naming.
Blueberries, blackberries, mangoes, pineapples,
avocados. But yeah, it's good. It's a good deal. It's a good deal.
Yeah,
and that's not even going out of date. That's just stuff that was in a packet of something that was off a bit. So like there was a split pepper in a packet of 3, so they took out one of them and then put the other 2 in the box. So it's good stuff.
I love that. Because if you're a supermarket or a shop, you don't really want to waste that kind of stuff anyway. You know, you want to be getting as much money as you can, making that
exactly
product.
Yeah. So, this week.
So today, like we said in the intro, we're going to be talking about electric cars. And I guess to a degree that kind of relates to electric vehicles as well, but predominantly electric cars, which I'm super excited about. I enjoy cars and I love how innovation is changing that whole market. So, what did you know before any research, George?
Well, quite excitingly, twice in a row now, I've actually studied this at universities. So I studied materials chemistry, which was heavily focused on battery technology. I actually had more than I probably had 3 exams that mentioned lithium-ion batteries or had a question on them. Yeah, so
that's pretty intense.
It was quite a big part of my, well, at least my 3rd year degree.
It's almost like we plan these,
but we don't plan these like this.
No,
it just so happens.
It just so happens. You're right.
Yeah, it just comes out like this. I think for a long time I didn't think I'd studied any of it, and then last week I realised, I did whole swathes of these things.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I did a bit on the physics side as well with the climate physics stuff that I mentioned last week. But again, it just means that I remember, or half remember, a load of sort of useless info that no one really wants to know. I just know how to do some maths that none of us really care about. I suppose it would be useful because that math results in the things we do care about, but sadly, I've forgotten how to do the math, so not a lot of help. What I do remember, though, is that the main kind of electric cars right now are powered by lithium-ion batteries, and there are a few hydrogen fuel cell powered cars, but I don't think there are as many. Might be wrong. Lithium-ion batteries are basically just, well, they're just like a battery, basically. Like, you know, a big version of what you've got on your laptop or your phone. They go in the base of the car, so that they're just like, if you've ever seen the Tesla without the top on, that's the battery that gets used. They're getting better all the time, and it takes, I think, no great philosopher to predict that battery technology will be one of the next big revolutions, I'd say, and that'll change the way we live. Everything from our phones, how long we go without charging them, watches, cars, I think, and in just like the internet and social media, it'll change our life in ways that we don't imagine, because there'll be applications that don't exist yet that'll come around. Hydrogen fuel cells are quite interesting, I think. Do you know how they work, Marcus?
Roughly. We were discussing it at a separate meeting with some other friends that I have.
Right.
That sounded really formal. I can't. I kind of understand what they are due to meeting friends.
Are you stalling?
Yeah. I'll tell you later.
Okay, have a go at how hydrogen fuel cells work. I'm not trying to put you on blast here, because
No. Let me see if I can remember this conversation.
It is kind of like you asking me how a technical question in boat design.
So,
well, not quite, but yeah.
The cells are arranged in a way. Really interestingly, they're almost like layers of hydrogen. No. Fuck, George. I don't know. However, no, I can't really say too much else. Yeah, carry on, George.
Okay, so I shall tell you.
Go.
I shall tell you. Essentially what happens is you've got basically pure hydrogen. And what hydrogen fuel cells do is strip an electron from each of two hydrogen atoms. This is at the most basic, like, molecular sense of what's happening. Obviously, it happens on thousands or millions of reactions a second. So an electron gets stripped off of two of the hydrogen atoms, and that basically allows them to bond with oxygen. And you get water from that, which creates like quite a lot of heat, but which then makes the reaction go quicker, I think, anyway, I imagine. But so all you get out of the end is water. There's no pollution in this part of the process. And the electrons that get stripped then get used to generate electricity. So yeah, I mean, the reason they're not more common, because obviously the nice thing about hydrogen fuel cells is that you can just fill up like a gas tank, but the issue is that hydrogen is quite difficult to make and store.
And the storage is usually quite heavy.
Yeah, exactly. So it's quite rare.
See, I know one thing. The storage is heavy.
So yeah, it's basically a balance, and it's tricky because hydrogen is also the most abundant element. So it's a brilliant one to go with, and all you're making is water, but there are too many difficulties at this stage for it to be the most viable technology. Yeah. Anyway, what did you know about this topic before we did some research?
So, also at university, we kind of touched on green design and electricity, which was kind of interesting. The first lecture that we went into, one of my lecturers is, one of those I've lived through everything type situation, and he's pretty frank about all the knowledge that he's sharing.
Right.
And the first lecture in, he goes, so we want to design a green boat. And that's been done for hundreds of years. It's called a sailboat. So enjoy, class. See you later. It's true, though. But yeah, I don't think any of the information that I learned at university is going to help me with this particular topic, relating to cars especially. I think one of the biggest takeaways that I have from studying all of that is how important regenerative charging is with electric vehicles, such that we can compare it to the normal combustible engine cars and vehicles in general. Because, you see, without regen charging, and I'm going to say regen charging because regenerative is quite a difficult word for me to say. So regen charging is effectively using energy from stopping, for example, to charge the battery back up. So you're not wasting so much energy on other items instead of going forward.
Yeah.
That makes the whole electric vehicles at least get the range that they're getting at the moment. Without it, it wouldn't be comparable. One thing that I did learn is that diesel is a much denser energy form than lithium-ion.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I'm glad you agree, because that's really me. That's me scraping the barrel quite heavily, and I guess the reason why energy denseness kind of matters is because you want the weight of the vehicle to be as little as possible to go as far and as possible, I guess, in a sense. If the weight of the car is the weight of the tanker.
And the real important part of energy density is that if you're, because let's say that you've got a limited size for the battery, the car maker's maximized the size the battery can be to in terms of physical space, and then the rest of it has to be car stuff. So at that point, the more dense the battery in terms of energy density, the more power it's got, so the further it can go. And that's why energy density is so important. And it's why we can have these small fuel tanks relative to the size of the batteries that go incredible distances. And actually, in fairness, what you were saying about weight is also important, because the heavier the battery, the less efficient the car.
Yeah.
So, if you could make a 1 kilogram battery that was as powerful as, or had as much energy as the massive ones, you'd massively reduce the weight of the car and therefore increase the efficiency.
So with yacht design, and I'm scraping again because I don't really focus on this kind of stuff anymore, but what we learned was that there is almost a propulsion cycle, especially with weight. So if you think about a boat, the lighter it is, the further it can go with the amount of fuel it has. And what I'm trying to say by that is, of course, if you want to go as fast as possible with as little as possible, then if you reduce the amount of stuff that's on the boat, you can achieve that much better. If you add a battery, it becomes heavier, the boat. And so your structure will usually have to become heavier also. And so therefore you need more power to propel the boat forwards, meaning that you'll have to have a larger engine, etc., or generator. And thus going over that cycle again, if that makes sense, because it gets heavier and heavier. And vice versa. Cool. I actually kind of feel like we kind of know a little bit about this topic before.
I suppose it's probably the most it's probably the most mainstream conversation or topic we've done in a way.
Yeah.
In the sense, in the sense that some of the things we've discussed, everyone knows about, but don't know anything about. Whereas I suppose it's also partly that you and I take somewhat of an interest in it, and also have some knowledge from studies and things like that. But yeah, anyway, that's what we knew before we started. So, what did you find out with a few days of research, or what have we, I suppose?
So it would be interesting. So I think it'd be interesting for the listeners to understand what type of questions that we kind of ask before starting the research part. And so for this particular topic, some of the questions were like, how much less CO2 does an electric car make in its life cycle? When would an electric car break even in total CO2 production compared to a gas car, a combustible engine? And, comparing the fuel costs, and, we've kind of heard about lithium-ion in terms of the typical battery, but is the element quite rare, or manufacturing that, is that quite difficult? So I think that's kind of interesting to know the type of questions that we're asking when we do the research. And so
sure.
One of the things that I found, lack of findings actually, with the first question, it was really difficult to get a precise figure on the life cycle CO2 emissions of a car. It was actually almost impossible to get an exact number. I think that's because really there's a lot of assumptions made, and there's a lot of nuances when doing those calculations. One company can differ vastly from another company. If you're comparing the likes of BMW, for example, to Tesla, their practices of business are much different. A lot more different, sorry. And so also the information that they give out can vary quite a lot too. So our best estimates finds that the lifetime CO2 emissions of an electric car sits within a range of 30 to 55% more efficient than combustible engine. So that was kind of interesting. I think what I would say is that there should be a way of comparing two cars easily in terms of the life cycle CO2 emission. And there should be a lot more transparency from the manufacturers themselves, almost have like an independent representative calculating all of this kind of thing. I don't know. How do you feel like this could be implemented, George?
Well, I think one thing I was just thinking about on the topic of why we found it so difficult was, I suppose, in terms of finding a life cycle estimate for CO2, you should be able to find out, I think, although we couldn't, you should be able to find out how much CO2 realistically goes into producing a car. And I think the reason we could find it for BMW is because they want you to know, because they've put loads of effort into reducing how much CO2 they produce per car they make. But then Tesla, I don't think, want you to know. I might be wrong on that. They do release figures in terms of totals, but they don't give you per vehicle as far as we could find. And I think that's because actually electric cars, from what we could tell, initially have a much higher energy, CO2 emission to be produced, and that's mostly down to the battery.
Yeah.
But once you move past that point, so even if we could get those figures for any car, once you move past that, it really depends on how people are recharging their cars, where they're getting the energy from. Are you recharging with a renewable source? Are you recharging in a certain state in the US? Because it varies entirely on average between all the states in the US or in the UK. Are you recharging from a personal power point, and therefore is your energy coming from a renewable provider or not? And so it's actually kind of too complex to tell. I suppose someone could make a calculator for this. It could be done. It's by no means impossible. But it's not been done, and so we couldn't find it.
And it requires transparency. I mean, like you just said, alluded to at the beginning, the honesty factor of these manufacturers is really important. But then you can't really just tell them, be more honest, because they are, in a sense, they're just... A lot of companies will fudge numbers to make them look great, and they're honest numbers, but they are dabbling with how they come up with that final...
Yeah, it's representation, isn't it? Or presentation. Right. It's... Yeah. And so, like, for example, I think what we found was that BMW probably, I'm pretty sure, use renewable energy. And to be fair, I think they directly power their car manufacturing plants with renewable energy. But so I think they take that off of the actual car CO2 emissions. But then I'm fairly sure Tesla, even though they produce something like 13 terawatt hours per year from their, also like in 1 year they did that from their solar plant.
That is crazy.
I don't think they include it in their CO2 emissions because they're sort of separate. It's like we do this, and also it's kind of because that what they do is they attribute it to the cars on the road. So what they were saying is, what I noticed is that yes, it does cost. It does. The production of energy or electricity for use in electric cars does produce CO2 generally because countries using fossil fuels, etc., to make that electricity. However, Tesla are producing more renewable energy than their cars are using. So it means that if you buy a Tesla and sort of in your head pretend that you know that energy is coming from there, then or that they specifically made it for that use, then you're all good. However, and maybe this is why you pulled that face, if that doesn't include everything they do, they're powering their plants, they're everything, then it's sort of irrelevant, isn't it?
I pull that face because it's my realization of how complex this whole data is.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if you read quickly, but there was that German study that was basically slating electrical vehicles.
Yeah, but then you look that study up and then there's people being like, that study's absolute rubbish.
Yeah, because
it's
of the data that they've used effectively.
Yeah.
Which is the trap that a lot of people probably can go down.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that as I get older, the more, as a sort of, maybe when I started university, I believe that scientific study meant, you know, it's pretty solid stuff. But actually, it just doesn't. Stuff gets published all the time. Like I think there's some crazy figure on psychology studies, and apparently, so many of the famous ones from like the 60s, 70s, 80s are just absolute rubbish.
Yeah. I can imagine that, mate. It's probably the same as, you know, the Earth is round. I lured you in. Now you stop believing in studies. Let's go.
Yeah, well, I suppose the important thing is that with studies, you have to... It's not about one study, it's about a number of them. And if you can find a number of studies with sources, especially if you can find sources that you'd expect to conflict with each other, agreeing, then you can be pretty confident. In the sense that if an oil company if a company that only makes electric cars and a company that only makes petrol cars agree on a fact, then depending on, we need to add a third. Oh, it's so complex because then you need to add in a third one of someone that's against cars in general, because you know the point that the car manufacturers could come out with could benefit them, even though actually, do you see what I mean? Sort of rambling a bit there, but
yeah.
It's so difficult.
I was just kind of going on a tangent in my head, in my little brain of mine. A lot of the problems that we face at the moment is that we're not we don't understand the data that is coming out, and one, are we even tracking all of the data that is needed? I think with AI technology, etc., we're going to get to a point where we will be able to compare exactly manufacturer per manufacturer on this type of data.
Yeah.
That's going to be kind of cool.
Although I do think that it would be really good as we go on if there was even independent board or a requirement for manufacturers to all give very clearly the per unit CO2 emission for production of a vehicle.
Yeah.
Because to be able to compare that, even if you forget petrol vehicles, let's pretend, or let's for this moment agree that they're, electric vehicles are more sustainable. Then we need to be able to compare manufacturers. If you're buying one from China, or not necessarily slating China, but
wow, that you sounded like you're slating China just then.
Yeah. Let's say a manufacturer that doesn't hold itself to the standards of sustainability that some manufacturers are forced to or do.
Yeah.
Then you need to be able to compare those two, because while they might on the road be just as efficient as each other, the production might not be.
Just say it, George. You think China manufactures stuff way worse than the UK?
Well, not necessarily worse.
Just admit that you're racist.
Oh, wow. God. Wow. That was me.
I don't know what to say now, though.
No, you can't really come back from that, can you?
No. You're not.
Well, so what I was going to say on maybe being too serious for the moment was that I think that China does a lot of things better than us, and they're also forging ahead pretty well on renewable energy.
Yeah.
Because they're clever, and or at least they're being clever people are managing the economy.
Yeah,
I suppose is what I say.
And they're really good at mathematics too.
Wow.
Right. I watched The Big Short yesterday.
Yeah.
Such a good film.
It is, isn't it? It's really good.
And there's that one scene where he's trying to sell the swaps to, I guess, Steve Carell. And he goes and points to that Chinese actor and says, "What, you think the numbers aren't correct? Well, that's my quant. That's my quant. Yo, what? My quantitative. Look at him. Do you notice anything different about him?" And he's obviously like this Asian kid in the corner. He says, "Yeah, he can't even speak a word of English." It's just hilarious. I just thought it was great.
Yeah, that is a good film.
Right, back to the point. I think there just needs to be a lot more improvement with assisting the purchase of cars to the general consumer. One of the things that we also asked at the beginning is, when would an electric vehicle break even compared to an internal combustion car?
Yeah.
And it was really difficult to find anything that would help with that calculation. Like I said, all those...
Yeah, I saw... sorry for interrupting. I saw all sorts of estimates. I think the lowest I saw, maybe it'd be interesting to compare, but the lowest I saw was about 3 years.
No, really?
Yeah. And it was backed, but I saw that a couple of times and backed by a couple of studies, sort of that sort of level of indication. But again, what are we comparing there?
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure those were comparing it to like a maybe 25 or 35 mile per gallon vehicle.
Yeah.
Which in 2019 is quite poor, actually.
Yeah.
And I think the highest was that German study, which is about 15 years or never or something crazy.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Just so people understand what we mean by the break-even point is we are assuming, of course, that the production of electric car in terms of CO2 emissions is a lot higher than your regular car. Yeah. But of course, when on the road, it's producing a lot less CO2. So how many years does it take to get to a same total emission, and then be less than the internal combustion car?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right. I think one other aspect that should be highlighted with the modern EV, electric vehicle, is that for a 100-mile charge, it currently costs around £4, which is around €5. Ah, no, it's probably like €4 now. It's ridiculous. And so with the equivalent fossil fuel car coming in at around £14 to travel, that's a 70% cheaper cost, assuming that you charge at home or at a public charging station. So that's pretty interesting. You can save yourself some money there too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that price is a really important factor, actually.
Yeah.
I feel like there's sort of a general feeling that electric cars are more expensive in general. I mean, I certainly felt like that before we did this. I felt like that was, in my head at least, the reason why they weren't being adopted quicker. Literally just because they're more expensive. I suppose the issue with maybe mass adoption of them is that while they might be cheaper in the long term versus a similarly priced car, the lowest bound is still quite high.
Yeah.
You're still going to pay a fair bit. I think one thing that it'd be sort of on the topic of 100-mile charges, and that's that it does take quite a long time to charge them as well. It's not long. It's 20 minutes. I think the Tesla Model S takes 20 minutes to get to 50%, but that's still 20 minutes.
They always like, what is the rough? I didn't look at the range of any of these electric cars. What is the rough range for these cars? Do you know? Like 200?
I don't actually.
200 miles. I think I saw on one Tesla.
Yeah, I think they're sort of approaching that sort of figure.
That is pretty good. I've seen some.
Here we go. Wow, this is long. 370 miles.
That's crazy. Yeah, so who cares about charging times?
In fairness, that's the Model S long range.
Yeah,
but
okay. But
that's
even
still quite impressive.
Yeah.
370 miles. Yeah. It's nuts.
And you can...
Wow, fair play.
Most employers now, you'll be able to charge while parking. And if not, it would only make sense in the future that they would implement that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, I have a well, not a friend. I worked with someone who wouldn't mind me calling them not a friend.
It's not your boss, is it?
No, it's not someone I work with now. Definitely not. No, I like all of them. And she managed to drive, I think, all the way to somewhere in the Alps with an electric car.
Oh, that's pretty sick.
About 5 or 6 years ago, and charging points have cropped up loads recently.
Yeah.
So I think maybe there is an element of planning in terms of, like you said, charging your car at work. So you've got to. I feel like you can be a little bit more free flowing with petrol because you just let it. You just get near to running out and then find a petrol station because they're so frequent.
Yeah.
Whereas electric, you got to be a bit more.
You have to remember though, when the car was invented, at one particular time there was no petrol stations on the road, to the degree that they are now. But that didn't stop people buying those type of cars.
Yeah, very very true.
And also in terms of cost, one thing that did just come to mind is that the likelihood of these cars failing because there's less movable parts. you'll go to the garage every now and again, but I could imagine it being significantly less than your regular car.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, I think
maybe talking out my ass, but
no, I could definitely see that. Because there's no clutch.
Yeah.
And that's, as far as I know, I have no idea what other. I understand the internals of the car, but I don't know what you'd miss.
Yeah. Well, there's no fan belt, pistons, anything like that.
No pistons. There's no
oil changes.
The engine's much simpler.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a few things. The only thing that on the flip side is that you've got this crazy expensive battery.
Yeah.
That's worth about £10,000, and there's also in some cases a bomb.
Sorry, mate. What? ISIS?
Well, if you
what? ISIS are making cars now.
Oh wow! No, so so
is that offensive? Surely that's not offensive, George. You're making me sound like I'm a bad guy.
That's not offensive.
Okay.
If you pierce a lithium-ion battery, it reacts really badly with air, so they burn like crazy.
Yeah.
I think Richard Hammond crashed a car and it was bad.
It's like those e-cigarettes blowing up in your pocket, right?
Yeah. Or your what is it? Note 7 or something.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I had to work at I think it was a Note. Wow. Note 6? Note 8. It was a Note 8.
Right.
I remember working. I used to work at Carphone Warehouse, which is a phone shop in the UK. And I remember working at when that period was happening and no one knew what the hell was going on. And then they got to a stage where it was just like, yeah, we just got to take these phones away. And we were told to.
Yeah.
That was so bad. And they did that recently as well with the foldable phone.
Yeah,
the battery wasn't blowing up, but, they had to recall the phone again.
The screen. Yeah, well, I think because dirt kept on getting into the mechanism and then under the screen, and then...
Yeah.
That was... And also people were... people tried to peel off the plastic bit on the front of the screen as well, which was quite funny.
Hilarious.
Yeah. So on the topic of lithium, or digressing from batteries, I suppose, is one scare, I suppose. And I think you maybe have heard it as well, and that's the world's going to run out of lithium, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I think sources do conflict here. That some are saying that basically there's no chance and we don't need to worry, and then some are saying that actually there's potential if demand is high enough, the reserves could run out in as little as 17 years. I mean, I personally think that's a little fanatical, and people would have to be buying electric cars at such a rate that it's probably not going to happen. But it's interesting to think about. Having said that, while running out probably isn't an issue, it may become more difficult to extract it efficiently and sustainably. And as that becomes more difficult, the price will rise, and this will put a strain on mobile phone and car battery costs. So we could potentially see the price of car batteries and then cars going up in the future. You would hope not, because at the same time technology and manufacturing methods will make them cheaper, so hopefully it will never happen. And on top of that, raw lithium in batteries is only about 1% of the total cost, as far as I could find. So actually the real terms effect on your £10,000 battery is probably not going to affect it very much.
A lot of it is probably R&D costs, right, with car batteries.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's true, yeah, good point.
I just quickly Googled if you could trade lithium. You can't. Otherwise, I'd be saying to everyone on the air, yeah, definitely buy some lithium. 17 years. Yeah. Oh, wow. Let's make some money.
Just Marcus with his warehouse of lithium.
Yeah. Oh, it's liquid gold, basically.
Well, apparently not, I suppose. kind of what we're saying.
Yeah. I think with all of these things, though, it's worth noting that the market is ever growing in the electrical space. I know that we talked about hydrogen earlier, and that is probably the future. But in the short term, it's definitely going to get better for electrics, batteries, etc. I think even now, though, it's a benefit to own an electric car. I think in the long term, it is much cheaper. I think in terms of CO2 emissions, the likelihood of you keeping the car for 10 years, you're going to be breaking even at that point anyway.
Yeah.
And so yeah. Sorry. I live in an apartment block, and I thought my neighbour was knocking on my door.
But it's someone knocking on a neighbour's door?
No, they're just going in. Whatever. It's an old building. I can hear everything, basically.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And so back to what I was saying, I think the fact of the matter is that with all this technology, it's only going to get better and better. Range will improve. The efficiency in driving an electric car can only get better as well. So, and also the infrastructure around it, like you said earlier, the charging stations is going to get better. Producing electricity at the national power grid is only going to get better. I think that it really is the future, especially in the short term.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I suppose to summarize this, what we found from this episode is, as long as you have an electric car for a significant amount of time, let's say 5 years, it's very likely that it's going to be sustainable, or more sustainable than a gas guzzling car. It depends on the manufacturer, where you get your electricity, where you live, and which car you buy, I suppose, as to how efficient they are, and how sustainable they are. So we can't give you a specific answer. However, you can do your own research, and you can get a pretty good idea if you're thinking about buying one. And you can definitely compare the efficiency of these cars once they've been manufactured, and you can also generally get an idea of how sustainable manufacturing methods are. So, well, it's a shame. Sorry, go on.
No, you finish, and I'll ask you a question. Sorry.
Okay. Oh yeah, I was basically there really. There was one more thing I wanted to add, and that was that. Oh yeah, it's probably cheaper as well.
Yeah.
If you've got enough money, if you're going to buy a 30,000 or 30,000 pound upwards car, it probably will work out cheaper to buy an electric car than it will petrol car at the same price. Anyway, Marcus, go on.
I was just going to ask you, and I apologise for interrupting you.
That's okay.
Overall, do you think electric vehicles are better than internal combustion engine cars? Because, and I say this because there are a lot of rumours and a lot of haters, I guess, on the electric vehicle. So I think I'm just personally asking you, I know that we haven't been able to prove a lot of the data, and we haven't been able to find a lot of the data, but your gut feeling, what do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Gut feeling, and almost everything sensible suggests that it is more sustainable and cheaper, actually, to get an equivalent electric car. Even if it's irrelevant, I suppose if you're getting a new car every year, then it's not. It's not, but you're a terrible person.
Yeah, don't do that.
If I'm honest.
Just don't do that.
I suppose.
Do you know anyone who buys a car once a year?
No, I mean, that's impressive if you're buying a car once every year. That's strong.
That is very strong. Either you're a very bad driver or you're making so much money.
Yeah, that's very true. No, I hope I don't know anyone that does that. But anyway, I think we should move on to the good and the bad for the week.
Cool. So here at I Know Nothing, we like sharing some news that is positive and sometimes negative about the environment. We have to balance it because otherwise it can get pretty depressing. And I think that's one of the major reasons why people don't do anything positive towards the environment. A lot of us know all of this information, at least roughly, similar to us. But actually acting can get pretty daunting. It can get pretty depressing if you don't know some good news, at least. So, George, hit us with the good.
So this is quite a topical one, actually. The UK is now the second cheapest country in Europe to own an electric vehicle. And that's based on the average monthly total cost of ownership for electric vehicles in the UK being at around £615.
That's pretty good.
Which is cool. Yeah. I don't know how that compares to other countries.
Yeah. I apologize. I should have probably written some others. I think yeah. I think Greece was just under Greece wasn't number one, but we've just beaten Greece. Maybe you can look it up while I talk about the bad.
I'll give it a go.
Indonesia and Malaysia are actually having a smog alert right now due to their forest fires.
Right.
It's gotten so bad that actually some schools have had to shut down, and those paper masks that you see all the time are being given out, and so that's pretty crappy.
That is quite bad.
Yeah. Again, these forest fires, man, it's pretty depressing. You hope that it's not due to human interaction, but it most likely is.
Yeah.
And then
it's a shame, isn't it?
Yeah, and then it kind of gets into the system and affects thousands of people. And
so I found the list that you were
let's move to the good
you
again.
gave me.
Let's move.
So, let's shit sandwich this one and go back to the good.
Yeah.
So, the UK were second. You're spot on. Greece were top.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then there's quite a big jump actually. So it goes from €676. Marcus did a nice what do you call it? What do you call it when you change money? Exchange?
Yeah.
Conversion, I think that's what I'm trying to say. It goes up to 804 for Germany. And if you're in Poland,
800.
It's €995 a month.
And what's the Netherlands? Does it say?
872. Not great, mate. Not great.
Hey, €200 more.
Yeah, if you own the Netherlands is the most expensive country in Europe to own a diesel car.
Yeah, the tax on cars are crazy, mate. The tax on cars are crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, blimey, yeah, it's high for everything, actually.
Well, tell me about it. Tell me about it. You have to have well, I was told this. I don't actually know for sure, but I'm pretty confident you have to pay a tax to own a pet, like a dog or a cat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Blimey. Anyway, the company in focus, Marcus.
So, again, here at I Know Nothing, we believe in celebrating companies that care for the environment. So this week, company in focus is Too Good To Go. We spoke about it briefly, but it's an app that I'm going to be using soon at least. It's similar to Olio, but instead you're buying products and produce from a nearby supermarket or shop. And again, it's usually at a large discount because most of the items is stuff that they can't sell regularly. And so that is a good company to focus on. One thing I have noticed, George, it is getting harder and harder to find a company to put on a pedestal every week.
Yeah, you've done a very good job of that. I feel like I need to take over the baton and do some work on that.
No, well, yes.
Pick up some slack.
Yes, you do.
Yes.
But I think in general, a lot of startups either are just not getting marketed very well, but it's very difficult to find these startups. We should start our own.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah.
Just like you can too. People who are listening, you can as well. It's late. This podcast is a late one. It's a weird one. I'm pretty tired. I don't know how you're feeling, but
I'm getting there. I'm definitely getting there.
Yeah.
The fact that I had some toast before we started should maybe suggest the time that we're doing this at. So anyway, the challenge. Now, due to the results from last week's challenge, and Mark's generously given me a 1-0 lead.
I think so.
I'm 1-0 up on that one. So heading into next week, what do you think we should, or this week, I suppose, what do you think we should do?
So I was told by a colleague, and shout out to Clara from work, that
Clara from work.
And congratulations, Clara. She'll know what I'm talking about. No one else needs to know
what you're talking about.
No one else needs to know. On the 21st of September is actually World Clean-Up Day. And so I was thinking that we could do something a bit topical and pick up at least 10 bits of litter during the week and hopefully recycle it or throw it in the bin.
Nice, yeah. I think I can hopefully manage that. Good shout. I like it.
I've actually signed up. I'm going to be joining a cleanup event and joining other people as well on that particular day.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Good of you.
It should be fun. I need to get that I Know Nothing t-shirt and
oh, that's a good point.
rep with that.
Yeah. I need to send that to you. Sorry.
It's alright. Geen probleem.
That's for anyone that doesn't know Marcus, that's Marcus's It's Not Alright voice.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's
not even
right.
I know that, but I guess it's
alright.
That's kind of true. You know, as friends, we tend to rip into each other a lot. Our friendship group. And I think I've just picked up that kind of stuff from Max, Harry, Gil, Theo, etc.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's all we've got time for, unless you've got anything else to add, Marcus.
Well, actually, I'm going to remember to shout our social media out.
Nice.
So, you can get involved in the conversation, and please do, by following us and liking us at I Know Diddly, or visiting our website, iknownothingpodcast.com. We really appreciate all the, what would you say, interactions that we get?
Yeah, the people coming and having a chat, getting involved in what we're doing. Just on a side note, we haven't forgot about the trees. We are going to do it. We're waiting for Marcus to come over to the UK. I don't actually know what we're at the moment. I imagine it's sitting somewhere around between 85 and 90 trees.
Yeah.
Which is like everyone that is listening has royally shafted us in that sense. But
mate, I keep forgetting how big of a number that is. That's such a big number. I keep forgetting how big that is. Fuck.
Yeah.
90.
Yeah, we messed up, didn't we?
Oh, mate. Yeah, we messed up so badly.
But the environment profits from this mistake.
Yeah.
So that's good. That's good.
Ignorance is bliss, right?
It is indeed.
I was going to say we could just plant bonsai trees. We're not going to do that. We're going to do some big trees.
We'd never get away with We'd never get away with that.
Don't worry. We'll hold ourselves accountable.
Yeah.
Right. Good?
Good.
Yeah? Well.
Yeah, talk to you later, mate.
Mate, it's always a pleasure. And this is what? Episode 12 now. That's pretty crazy.
Getting on a bit. So that's 3 months we've been doing this now.
Yeah. Have you felt like you've gotten into a rhythm?
Yeah, I still think I'm still not very good at getting, because I think it's really important for us to write or come up with the facts and do our research before we come to record.
Mm-hmm.
But it is difficult to fit it in, isn't it?
Especially when, I understand now why some, let's say, YouTubers quit their jobs and stuff, because if you are actually creating content, it's a lot harder than you imagine. I don't want to put anyone off, because actually it's really enjoyable at the same time. But the work that goes on behind the scenes, trying to get people involved, trying to reach new people, trying to get information that is concise and consistent with your message is difficult. But what a learning process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like if anyone's listened to both episode 1 and this one and got to this point in episode 12, then let us know, what the difference is. Get in touch on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram and just let us know.
Yeah,
if we've
shoot us a
improved. It'd be good to
DM.
know.
Shoot us a DM. Because I feel like I kind of know who those people are. There's a few in America who seem to be listening to us.
Yeah,
constantly.
There's someone from Stuart in Florida that's just there every week, and it is so appreciated.
So whoever's listening from Stuart in Florida, thank you very much. Honestly.
Thank you.
OG.
Yeah, because you are confirmed not one of our friends. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, you're not someone we told to listen to the podcast.
Yeah, we haven't forced you to listen to this. Yeah, you still come.
Unless it's just someone with a VPN set up in Florida.
Oh, that could also be true.
That'd be a sad day.
Or it could also be an accidental press play. Get the notification away.
But it's every week.
Yeah. Well, regardless, thank you. We hope that you today, all of you, have learned something. We hope that some of the discussions we've had has opened your head, opened your mind a little bit to think differently and think positively too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Well, awesome. I think that's where we should finish, Marcus.
Right.
We can't do better than that.
Love you, mate.
Love you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.